Chapter 176. It's enough to know that I'm in your heart. What are you doing here? Han Shao couldn't make out Emily's intentions. Although his expression was the same as usual, his heart was in a panicked mess as he smiled apologetically at Emily. I'm just here to discuss things with you on how we should handle the chief of the Griffin Legion. It was unknown whether Emily was doing this on purpose, as she didn't even glance at Han Shao after entering, but rather gave an expectant look at Phoebe while talking to the other two. Are you not Madam Emily? How do you know Brian? What exactly is going on here? Phoebe found the relationship between Emily and Han Shao to be quite interesting, and she was much more intrigued about this than dealing with the Griffin Legion. Since the person in question was here, she couldn't resist the urge to bring it up. Phoebe sneakily glanced at Han Shao after uttering these words. Her good-looking face blushed all the way, and she even extended her hand toward Han Shao's arm as a way of trying to look good in front of Emily. If this were yesterday, Han Shao would still be able to give Phoebe no face and explain that the relationship between the two of them was fake. However, due to last night's flirtations and her charm, he wasn't sure how to explain this now. He could only look at Emily with an awkward face, wearing a wry expression and not saying a word. A pair of clear eyes glittering with complicated emotions, Emily watched Han Shao carefully. However, this look only made Han Shao feel even more guilty as he resolutely made up his mind, took in a deep breath and said to Phoebe, actually the relationship between me and Emily is weird, that of a subordinate and superior in the same assassination organization. We happen to be assigned to the same target this time, so please do not think too much about it, Miss Phoebe. Just as Han Shao was about to make a thorough explanation, Emily, who'd been staring at Han Shao, suddenly interrupted Han Shao's words, obscuring the original words he had been going to say. Han Shao was flabbergasted. He had no idea why Emily was saying all of this, but when he looked at Emily in surprise, he saw Emily give him an understanding smile. It was as if Emily had only wanted to be recognized by Han Shao, and his actions to reveal the truth had been what she wanted, instead of competing for a title with Phoebe and gaining a momentary victory. Since Emily had put it this way, Phoebe felt a bit awkward. It rather appeared that she had been petty. It was a good thing that Phoebe was a superwoman in charge of a guild, so she only spent a moment in awkwardness. Phoebe immediately let go of Han Shao's arm, making her way towards Emily's side. I apologize, Sister Emily. It was just me thinking too much. When taking into account your position and identity, it's hard to imagine you looking upon this villain with any sort of favor. Phoebe's censure of Han Shao as a villain met with Emily's approval. However, Emily's heart gave a slight sigh, saying that unfortunately she'd already hopped onto this villain's pirate ship and was so deeply entrenched that there was no way to get off now. Indeed, I would never like such an uneducated and ill-mannered fellow like him. Besides, I'm already married, and so that would be even more impossible. Please don't think any wild thoughts, Emily sighed in her heart, a smile still on her face as she reassured Phoebe. I should have known after seeing how the jerk is so secretive. To think that he is actually part of the Dark Mantle. We should have guessed that earlier. Candace looked at Han Shao with interest, speaking with a gentle laugh. Contrary to Han Shao's expectations, both Phoebe and Candace didn't seem particularly surprised after his identity had been revealed by Emily. It seemed that they had long since suspected that his actions were the result of a secret organization, and Emily's revelation only served to confirm their internal suspicions. I already told you, didn't I? He really is very secretive. As part of the necromancy major at the academy, he's always doing weird things on the side. It turns out that he has another identity within the Dark Mantle, so this completely explains all of his previous odd gestures. Phoebe also laughed. She flung Han Shao an eye roll from Emily's side, apparently faulting him for keeping everything a secret. Han Shao shrugged his shoulders and spoke. All right, now is not the time for this. We should be checking how we can help Phoebe shake off the implications of this matter and take down Griffin Legion Chief Bob Asher. This should be the final matter in the end. The two girls decided to drop the topic about Han Shao's identity after he spoke. Since Emily did not know how much Han Shao had told the two girls previously, he was still the one explaining matters this time, and also explaining a few things about his identity to the two girls. My senior brother Lawrence is also in Valen City. Once Han Shao mentioned Lawrence's existence, Phoebe seemed to be surprised as she exclaimed softly. Nodding his head. Han Shao said. Indeed. He will help us with this time's matter as well. He came to Valen City because of his cousin Lisa and their family matters. The downfall of her family was caused completely by the Griffin Legion. Lawrence wants to avenge them and will be helping us wholeheartedly. In their previous discussion, Han Shao understood that Lawrence had come with a primary motive, not just to avenge Lisa but to kill the chief of the Griffin Legion and prop up his own man as well. However, Han Shao couldn't reveal Lawrence's identity to the two girls, and thus, he could only just say that Lawrence was willing to help only for Lisa's sake. With regards to the siege weapons, I've already surreptitiously dropped a bit of your essence blood onto one of the siege weapons. We will keep escorting the shipment until it reaches the western part of the city and before handing it over to the Griffin Legion. I think the Griffin Legion's weapons warehouse is definitely there. We can look around for it there. Phoebe spoke after Han Shao recounting what she had done after Han Shao had left. Very good. That location is definitely where all the weapons of the Griffin Legion are being stored. I will visit the place myself so that we will have a grasp on what direction it is in. As long as we obtain records that the Griffin Legion has bought these siege weapons as well as the shipment itself, we'll be able to pin the crime of rebellion onto Bob Asher if we report it to the leaders. Han Shao immediately said excitedly after hearing Phoebe's words. After saying this, Han Shao and the three women discussed things a bit further, then left with Emily, using carrying out the mission as an excuse. I feel that his relationship with Madame Emily is a bit off. The way they interact and speak with each other is a bit too intimate, Candace immediately said with a furrowed brow after Han Shao and Emily exited the room. Hey, don't think too much about it. Madame Emily is a widow. Besides, she is a member of the Betteridge family. Nothing is going to happen. Phoebe spoke with a content smile and soothed Candace. Have you two gone from putting on an act to doing this for real? Why do you have this expression on your face otherwise? Candace suddenly spoke with astonishment when she saw Phoebe's face change to that of a young woman in love. Upon hearing this, Phoebe blushed even harder, stammering in embarrassment. Last night we already. My goodness, Phoebe, you are too easy. How could you end up sleeping with him so fast? Candace exclaimed in surprise with an open mouth without even waiting for Phoebe to finish her words. But what are you saying? We only confirmed our relationship last night. Phoebe's face was now a deep shade of red as she scolded Candace in a low voice. Oh really? I don't think it was just confirming your relationship. Your expression is obviously trying to hide something else. Out with it now. Candace watched Phoebe attentively, having waited for Phoebe to say those words before effectively checkmating her with a ruthless demand for an explanation. After Han Shao and Emily left the room, they didn't immediately go to carry out their mission. Rather, the two of them went to the hotel room that Emily stayed in. The two of them entered the room and Han Shao immediately hugged Emily tenderly, asking why. I know you have me in your heart. That is enough for me. The age gap between us is too large, and I have the identity of a daughter-in-law to the Betteridge family as well. If you attempt to expose our relationship, this would have drastic consequences for both me and you. Emily buried her face within Han Shao's chest, speaking in a soft voice and recounting with great sorrow. Before Han Shao reached the full peak of his strength, exposing their relationship would have drastic consequences, particularly for Emily. Not only could this affect her brother's career but also stain the family's reputation. There was no other way, so Emily could only complain and stay quiet about this matter. Phoebe is a good girl. Though her birth is not very high, she is pretty and clean and doesn't have many strings attached. You should be together with her. Her merchant guild would benefit you so much more. I would understand. Emily burrowed deeper, murmuring softly, I promised you that we won't have to sneak around for very long. Someday, when there is no one else left in the Empire who can dictate what I can or cannot do, I will give you what you deserve. Han Shao had a firm expression as he declared this in a low voice, fiercely kissing Emily's body and carrying her towards the bedroom. Emily responded to him with a degree of warmth she never had before, perhaps wishing to extinguish the bitterness that she had been feeling with happiness. Chapter 177, Devising Strategies. After a tumble in the sheets with Emily, Han Shao left alone, heading for the Griffin Legion's warehouse on the western side of the city. Thanks to the Dark Mandal's intelligence network, Han Shao had a pretty good idea as to where the exact location of the warehouse was. Under the cover of night, Han Shao left no traces behind as he moved. He made use of the art of the mnemonic ninth heaven to sneak into the warehouse from above, hiding himself in an isolated corner, and silently circulated the magical yuan to compel the demon infant to sense where the drop of essence blood was located. When Han Shao did so, he felt the demon infant jump as it sensed the drop of essence blood's exact position. He evaded the thick infestation of Griffin Legion patrols and stopped not too far from a low house. He made use of his sharp vision to see that apart from being under heavy guard, it was completely sealed with no windows. After observing for a while, Han Shao silently sensed and clearly felt that the drop of essence blood was beneath the house. This meant that there was definitely a secret room used to store things underneath this house. It was a pity that the Earth Elite Zombie had yet to be fully formed. Otherwise, with its power of Earth, the Earth Elite Zombie could tunnel into the ground and scout ahead. Without the Earth Elite Zombie, Han Shao could only take out all the guards at the front door if he wanted to enter and look inside. Although the guards weren't that weak, Han Shao was still confident that he could take care of them with no one being the wiser. However, he'd alarm his enemies in this way and the siege weapons may get moved again. Therefore he didn't take any action after thinking for a while and returned back the way he'd come. Within the Dark Mandal stronghold, Emily and Han Shao met up to weigh all the powers within Valen's city as well as the Calamity Church and Lawrence. They then carefully estimated Bob Asher's strength, and the two of them began to brainstorm strategies to take care of Bob Asher with furrowed brows. Through the Dark Mandal's intelligence, Han Shao learned that there was a secret chamber hidden within Bob Asher's manor. The two of them discussed for a bit and became generally certain that Bob Asher's siege weapons were likely within the secret chamber. There might even be other evidence. After the two had discussed, they decided to sneak into the Asher manor when the guard was lax during Clark's funeral tomorrow night. They were going to make use of Lawrence's key man to make the guard even more loose that night and divert some of the men away from Bob Asher's side. The Calamity Church would also attempt to assassinate Bob Asher, whereas Han Shao and Emily would make use of the opportunity to sneak into the secret room and see if there was any useful intelligence. When the operation had been more or less settled, Han Shao and Emily thought carefully about what problems might crop up and brainstormed corresponding strategies again and again. Han Shao only started moving when the two of them felt that it was more or less settled. He went off to visit Belinda and Lawrence, thoroughly discussing the operation with them. This matter had to do with Phoebe as well, but she didn't have to help him with this. However, once Emily learned that Phoebe was a sword master, she went ahead and counted Phoebe as part of their team. Her excuse was that Phoebe was now involved anyways, so it was the best way to resolve this matter. As Han Shao went to find Belinda to discuss things, Emily also sought Phoebe and Candace's assistance. No one was sure what she said, but Phoebe and Candace both agreed readily to join this mission. When Han Shao returned to Elaine's hotel from Lawrence's place, he was planning on going to find Phoebe when he ran into the druid Caspian along the way. Han Shao didn't think much of it and just nodded at Caspian, planning on passing him by. "A moment of your time, please," Caspian suddenly said at this time. Han Shao was taken aback and turned to look at Caspian with confusion. He smiled. "Does the elder need me for something?" Nodding with a smile, Caspian said, "If you don't mind, can you come to my room? I have a favor to ask." It had been thanks to Caspian that everyone had been saved last time, otherwise Han Shao would have been hard-pressed to rescue everyone with his own strength. Things wouldn't have been that easy, not to mention capturing Belinda in the end. He nodded straightforwardly and smiled. Of course. Han Shao walked with Caspian as they arrived at his room. There was nothing out of the ordinary in his room, but Han Shao could feel the extraordinary life exuded from the plants within the room as he walked in. The big bad guy, what are you doing here?" The little elf Angelica seemed to be meditating on the bed and was quite surprised to open her eyes and see Han Shao walking through. "Don't be so rude, Angelica. You need to understand to respect others or no one will respect you." Caspian glared severely at Angelica and admonished. "Understood, Grandpa." Angelica stuck her tongue out after these words and spoke a bit fearfully as she made a face. Han Shao randomly picked a seat within the living room according to Caspian's instructions. Angelica didn't continue her meditations at this time and jumped off the bed, walking to the living room, staring at Han Shao with eyes bright with interest. "Elder, do you have any instructions?" Han Shao looked at Caspian with a faint smile after he sat down. "You're too polite. It's not instructions but rather a favor I'd like to ask. I wonder if it'll be too much of a bother." Caspian looked at Han Shao with a benevolent smile. Han Shao was planning on commencing the operation tomorrow night with Emily, so if Caspian wanted anything that would affect his plans later, there was no way he could possibly agree. Therefore Han Shao spoke honestly. "Please go ahead and speak first. I will certainly help you if I can, but I also have some matters to attend to. Please understand if I don't have the time to this time." Caspian nodded with an understanding smile and mused silently for a moment, pointing at Angelica. "I need to run an errand and will be back tomorrow at the latest. However, I can't bring Angelica with me. I hope you can take care of Angelica during this time and promise that she won't be in harm's way." Han Shao wouldn't undertake his mission until tomorrow night, and he had made all his preparations already. He actually didn't have much to do between today and tomorrow. Even if something urgent came up, Emily, Phoebe and the others could handle things. Thus, Han Shao only thought briefly after Caspian spoke and agreed readily, saying, "No problem, I don't have anything pressing during this time. Valen City is quite chaotic, so be careful when you venture out." With Caspian's strength and his need to leave the hotel immediately without bringing Angelica, it must be an exceedingly dangerous matter. He must have been afraid that he would endanger Angelica's life, and that's why he didn't take Angelica with him. This was why Han Shao had spoken up in reminder. "Grandpa, you must be going to fight that enemy. Take me with you. I've practiced magic for a very long time and can help you." Angelica obviously knew some of Caspian's matters, as her little face changed immediately when she heard these words. She stretched her hands out to wrap them around Caspian's arm and started pleading anxiously. "No, you can't go. A duel is between two people. I would be breaking the rules if I brought you." Caspian truly doted on Angelica and would patiently not give way on this matter. He resolutely turned her down. In actuality, Han Shao could understand why Caspian didn't want to take Angelica with him from his tone and words. He didn't want Angelica to take the risk with him, and so breaking the rules was just an excuse he was using to distract Angelica. But the enemy doesn't necessarily follow the rules. Angelica cried out anxiously and then looked at Han Shao. "Although this person is bad, he's strong. Why doesn't he help you? I can protect myself. No matter what the other does, Grandpa will not break the rules." "Do you not listen to Grandpa's words anymore?" The druid Caspian frowned ferociously as he stared at Angelica. Angelica and Caspian stared stubbornly at each other for a while before the former backed down. Her face scrunched up with worry. She said, "Then you must be careful." "I will." Caspian agreed and then turned to Han Shao. "Then I leave her in your hands." Caspian nodded gratefully toward Han Shao after these words and walked towards the door, leaving through it. Chapter 178. "I'm happy to be captured by him. What can you do about it?" "Big bad guy, will my grandpa be alright?" The little elf Angelica looked at Han Shao with great worry when the Caspian left. Caspian obviously possessed no allies in Valen City, otherwise he wouldn't have given Angelica over to the care of a relative stranger. If his enemies were in Valen City and decided not to follow the rules and fight him, then the danger to him would be greater. However, in order to relieve Angelica's worries, Han Shao could only smile and say, "Relax, your grandpa's strength is great, so there definitely won't be any dangers." Angelina, who'd originally been carefree and without worry, suddenly became worry-stricken because of her grandpa's matters. The eyebrows on her charming face were knit together as she suddenly became taciturn. Tomorrow night Han Shao would have to face the Griffin Legion with the others, but for Belinda from the Calamity Church and Lawrence, today was a special day, so they had to use the resources at hand to prepare in advance. After staying here for a short while, Han Shao decided that just waiting in Angelica's room wasn't the thing to do, so after thinking for a bit he turned to the sulky little elf and said, "Let's go find Big Sister Candace and play." "I don't want to go anywhere. I want to wait here for my grandpa." Unexpectedly, Angelica, who always wanted to play, did not acknowledge Han Shao and even firmly refused his suggestion. Momentarily stunned, Han Shao stared blankly before opening his mouth. "You waiting here is not a good option either. I think your grandpa will be fine, so why don't you talk to Big Sister Candace? Maybe you will feel less worried." "I know that you want to find Sister Candace yourself. You you big evil person, so if you want to go then go by yourself. I'm not going. Angelica resentfully glared at Han Sha-oh, snorted and then proceeded to ignore him. Han Sha-oh did not know whether to laugh or cry at her words, but he already given Caspian his promise and Valen City was indeed not safe at this time, so he couldn't possibly leave her alone. Otherwise, if Caspian's enemy took this opportunity to seize Angelica and used her to threaten Caspian. Looking at Angelica's stubborn expression, Han Sha-oh muttered to himself before fiercely glaring at her and said, "Who cares if you are willing to or not? I already promised your grandpa, so I won't let you leave my side." After speaking these words, he didn't wait for Angelica's reply before his body flashed like lightning, arriving next to Angelica. His left hand extended and hooked Angelica's body before lifting her up into the air with hands that were like steel claws. "Let go, you big scoundrel, you big pervert. Hurry up and let me go." When Angelica reacted, she found that she was unable to move her body even a little bit. Her two little feet kicked in the air while her mouth spewed out curses. Han Sha-oh paid no attention towards Angelica's shouting. Han Sha-oh didn't care at all as he kept his hand hooked around her body while he pushed open the door and made his way towards Candace's room. Once he was outside the door, Han Sha-oh discovered that Angelica was still screaming. In order to prevent her from attracting too much attention, he reached out with his right hand and covered her small mouth. Angelica's loud screaming was suddenly diminished to low grunting, and she looked as if she was being coerced by Han Sha-oh. "Put her down." Just when Han Sha-oh was close to Candace's room, several members of the Battlefire mercenary band suddenly stepped out from 2 doors down as they stared at Han Sha-oh. One of whom had a fierce body, shook a head full of hair like it was like iron needles, and shouted with a sword strapped to his back, "Isn't he the man who was talking to the vice chief outside the city?" One of the journeyman mages said in shock as he recognized Han Sha-oh with a glance. "I don't care what his relationship to the vice chief is. This kind of public coercion of a little girl infuriates me. I cannot possibly stand by and watch with wide eyes as he takes this poor little elf away." The fierce-looking senior swordsman spoke with extreme righteousness. His bronze eyes stared at Han Sha-oh while he slowly reached behind him to draw his longsword to point it at Han Sha-oh. Not knowing what was going on, a pair of eyes concentrated on Han Sha-oh's body, and Candace asked with astonishment, "What happened, Brian? Why are you grabbing a hold of little Angelica?" "It's nothing. Something happened to her grandpa, so he asked me to protect her. I am keeping her by my side so I can ensure her safety." Han Sha-oh shrugged his shoulder and replied easily, "Davis, this is just a misunderstanding. There is no need to be so nervous." Candace gently smiled and said towards the fierce senior swordsman, "His words are useless. Only that beautiful little elf's words can prove his innocence." For some reason Davis was still quite obstinate upon hearing Candace's words as he stared straight at the little elf Angelica, who had her mouth covered by Han Sha-oh's hand. With those words, Han Sha-oh immediately loosened his hand from Angelica's mouth and said, "Okay, stop playing around now and tell him that I am only protecting you." When Han Sha-oh loosened his hand, Angelica loudly cursed and continued once again to make a ruckus before staring angrily at Han Sha-oh and saying fiercely, "You big evil person, you're kidnapping me. You're kidnapping me." As soon as Angelica's words left her mouth, Davis, standing off to the side, immediately flew into a rage. He was pointed his longsword at Han Sha-oh and proclaimed righteously, "Let her go immediately, otherwise you will definitely regret it." "Enough, Davis, can you really not see that the little girl is just messing around? If you really have nothing to do, then it would be better for you to return back to your room and recover your strength and not to poke your nose into other people's business," Candace said with an imposing aura, her eyes bright and expression cold as she glowered at Davis. Maybe he was used to Candace's berating, as Davis was timid at first but regained some courage after he looked at Angelica. He straightened up, puffed out his chest and said, "Master Candace, if your suggestion is wrong then I will not listen to you." By now it was Han Sha-oh's turn to be amused, as he could tell from Davis' gaze when he looked at Angelica that there was a different kind of fire within them. Han Sha-oh's heart moved as he already had a grasp of the situation. With a weird chuckle, Han Sha-oh remarked, "So this is the case. It seemed like this valiant mercenary wants to appear to be a hero in front of a little beauty, or maybe there's yet another reason for him to be acting like this." With these words, Candace and Phoebe, along with the other mercenaries off on the side, all of them turned to look oddly at Davis. Even the little elf Angelica measured up Davis with an astonished look. At this time Davis's face turned red as he awkwardly tried to explain. No, it's not like that. Han Shao loosened his grip on Angelica and put her down as he spread out his hands and said, alright, I won't hold on to you any longer since this hero wants to save the beauty so badly. Angelica, you are now saved and the hero can take you away. I won't care about you. After speaking, Han Shao calmly walked towards Candace and Phoebe, not sparing a single glance at Angelica as if he'd completely forgotten about the promise he made to her grandpa. You are safe now, Davis said as he walked towards Angelica. The righteous soul he'd boasted before was gone as he stammered. What does this have to do with you stupid dum-dum? I'm happy to be held by him, big deal. When Angelica saw that Han Shao didn't even acknowledge her heart suddenly shook. When she saw the approaching Davis lick his lips, she became even angrier and replied angrily. Davis' expression suddenly became peculiar, as if someone had just stepped on him with a dirty shoe. His face was unspeakably embarrassed and bitter. Big bad guy, you promised my grandfather that you would take care of me, so you're not allowed to leave. The little elf Angelica hollered at Davis before picking up her small flower skirt and quickly charging toward Han Shao. She reproached loudly while running, fearful that Han Shao would ignore her, while she didn't even deign to give Davis a glance. Davis stood to the side with a bitter face as Candace glared at him, saying without any good feelings, "Scram back to your room. Stop making a fool out of yourself. If you want to be a hero who swoops in to save the beauty, then first look carefully whether or not the beauty is willing to let the fiend kidnap her. You deserve to make a fool out of yourself by acting so ignorantly." With Candace's words, the heartbroken and inconsolable Davis let out a long sigh and gloomily returned to his room. This kind of situation was indeed complicated to his brain, and he didn't quite understand it even until now. How come Angelica, who'd had on a face full of mistreatment and injustice, start to implore Han Shao when he let go of her hand and turned to leave? Chapter 179, officially starting the mission. In the end, Angelica went into Candace's room with Han Shao. They chatted with Phoebe as well and learned that Emily had gone out on business. With Emily and Phoebe here, Han Shao didn't need to worry about Angelica's safety as much and left with the excuse that he had something to do. He returned to his own room to quietly practice another high-level necromancy magic, summoning hate warriors. Clarendon's years of knowledge combined with Han Shao's own spirited fortitude meant that he struggled for a few hours worth of time before he became well versed in the art of summoning hate warriors. Eventually he managed to summon before him from the other dimension a hate warrior holding a metal club. This summoning consumed most of Han Shao's mental energy. As he meditated, he felt his mental strength quickly recovering after using the transportation matrix to return to the cemetery of death. Evil Master, are you finally going to take me away now that you've come? As soon as Han Shao appeared, Dark Dragon Gilbert began to make a ruckus in a loud voice. That's right, this time I'm really going to take you away from here. Han Shao smiled as he spoke, seeing Gilbert looking especially crestfallen. As soon as he heard that he could finally leave the cemetery of death, Gilbert's dejection was replaced by ecstasy in a flash as he started a continuous stream of fawning compliments. Enough, you should get ready. We're going to leave soon, Han Shao said impatiently as he quickly walked to the place where he was refining the Earth elite zombies. He discovered that the chi of Earth streaming towards the center seemed to flow slower and slower from when he had first started. It seemed that the elite Earth zombie had absorbed nearly all of the Earth chi from the cemetery of death. The Yin Demon Cave was on the other side, and its resentful spirits were still struggling over who would swallow the 3 drops of essence blood that Han Shao had dropped in before. Because his actual strength was comparable to the true demon realm, Han Shao's magical yuan had changed fundamentally. Not to mention the fact that it had 3 drops of Han Shao's essence blood to sustain it. The Yin Demon Cave could actually operate for quite a long time. It wasn't like the time when he was only refining the original demons and had to infuse it with magical yuan every day. Seeing that everything in the cemetery of death looked normal, Han Shao didn't linger but instead attended to the entreaties of the Dragon Gilbert and brought him out of the cemetery of death. After returning to Elaine's hotel, Han Shao told Gilbert to stay in his room while he practiced magic the entire night to ensure his best performance. The afternoon of the second day, Han Shao stayed in his room. He also forbid Gilbert to take a single step outside while he spent the entire day mastering the adept level necromancy magic corpse explosion. Towards evening time, Gilbert finally couldn't take it any longer. He made an uproar toward Han Shao from inside the room. What kind of lame place is this? After we left the other place we've stayed here the entire time. I'm about to get ill from being so stifled. The meditating Han Shao suddenly exhaled, opening his thoughtful eyes to look at Gilbert. Alright, we'll leave this place immediately. When we do, you have to keep your mouth shut the entire way and do as I say. If you dare to try anything without my permission, then I'll leave you in the cemetery of death forever. What is it? What kind of things are we doing at night? Haha, esteemed master, don't worry, I'll definitely pull my own weight. Gilbert immediately became incredibly excited when he heard Han Shao's words. Footsteps sounded from outside at this moment as Emily's voice rang out. Are you inside? Han Shao immediately stood up when he heard it was Emily and opened the door to ask, how are things? Did you manage to take care of everything? The open door revealed Emily's voluptuous body, making Gilbert's eyes widen in appreciation. He suddenly whistled and said excitedly, a beauty, it's a great beauty. Shut up. Han Shao turned back to glare ferociously at Gilbert. Gilbert didn't dare say anything after this, but he kept looking at Emily up and down and looked at Han Shao with a face full of envy. Who is he? Emily wasn't aware of Gilbert's existence and looked at Han Shao in surprise when she suddenly saw him appear. One of us. There won't be any problem with him at all. He'll take action with us and he'll be able to help us quite a bit, Han Shao explained. Although Gilbert was still a young dark dragon, he possessed great destructive abilities when he transformed into his dragon form. If a dark dragon added to the chaos in a critical moment, this would greatly increase the success of Han Shao and the others' missions. Emily had never doubted anything Han Shao said, so Gilbert's appearance only made her get to know him that much better. She didn't question Han Shao's methods. The great druid Caspian has yet to return, and even Angelica is quite worried. Forget the Battlefire mercenary band this time. Candace and the others don't know our identity and planned a mission. I just saw that Candace asked the other members of her band to temporarily take care of Angelica, and that senior swordsman Davis was quite happy about that. You don't need to worry about Angelica's safety for the time being. It looked like Emily had learned of the conflict between the two from Phoebe, which was why she was saying this to Han Shao now. Alright, since this is the case, let's leave it to them. Han Shao thought for a bit and opened his mouth to say, since Caspian had yet to return, that meant something must have happened. However, Han Shao wasn't great friends with Caspian, so he wouldn't alter his long laid out plans for Caspian. The middle-aged Bob Asher had lost two of his sons in the span of a few months. This matter had been a matter of great shock to him. As the true master of Allen City, Clark's funeral had to be conducted with all due pomp and ceremony. All sorts of luxurious carriages were parked in front of the Asher Manor, with no one of any importance in Allen City daring to miss such an important occasion. No matter how busy things were at home, they would always manage to squeeze out the time to come, comfort told Asher's injured soul. So we're here to participate in a funeral. Gilbert stood in a quiet corner next to Han Shao and Emily as he spoke with disinterest. No, we're here to make a mess. Han Shao chuckled lowly and said, if the mission is successful, I'll award you, so work hard. When he heard that they were here to cause a mess and that there might be rewards later that night, Gilbert's interest was hugely sparked once again as he laughed heartily. He was about to walk inside when Han Shao grabbed him back with a hand again. We can't go in through the front door since we're here to make a mess, stupid. Han Shao hectored Gilbert with ill temper and nodded towards Emily. The three of them circled around the manor and arrived at a high wall where no one else was present. Asher's even set up some magical protection at some key parts of his manor, but there shouldn't be a problem if we enter through here. Be careful though, I'll go up first to take a look. Emily spoke softly and used a levitation spell to slowly rise into the air, taking a look around when she got to the top before making a gesture toward Han Shao. Can you still fly? Han Shao looked at Gilbert by his side as he prepared to make a move. Shaking his head, Gilbert answered honestly, only if I transform back to my original form. Otherwise I won't be able to fly. Being a burden from the very beginning, Han Shao looked disdainfully at Gilbert and grabbed his nape, using the art of the mnemonic ninth heavens to fly into the air and land beside Emily. The three of them descending together. Han Shao and Gilbert followed behind Emily after descending as they passed through 2 corridors and an artificial mountain appearing in the crowded manor with bland expressions. The 3 of them had changed clothes earlier and Emily had applied some magical solution to her face, completely altering her appearance. Even Han Shao barely recognized her. The 3 of them was dressed like the rest of the guests at the manor, so no one gave them any trouble when they appeared within the crowd. Wow, so many women, so many beautiful women. Gilbert was a bit excited as his eyes spun lustfully in all directions, speaking to Han Shao lowly. Mind your image, Gilbert. Han Shao cursed lowly as his eyes also darted to and fro. He finally located Belinda and Johnny from the Calamity Church, noting that they had also arrived. In a distance not too far away, Lawrence had also used a magical solution to alter his appearance and waved at Han Shao when he saw their group arrive. Emily had arranged for Phoebe and Candace to be elsewhere. They would set things on fire as soon as the Calamity Church made their move, utterly throwing the manor into chaos. Add to that a schedule adjustment from Lawrence's man. The defensive capabilities of the manor at that time would certainly be at its weakest. Han Shao and Emily would then take advantage of the confusion to sneak into the Asher secret room. Chapter 180, Complete Chaos. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Lawrence had first made arrangements to alter the protective detail from the Griffin Legion. Emily then used the power of the Dark Mantle to restrain 3 out of 5 Great Earth Riders by Bob Asher's side. Belinda and Johnny from the Calamity Church walked in and out of the crowd for a bit before disappearing without a trace. Belinda nodded at Han Shao and Emily from afar, indicating that she had made her preparations. Let's go. Be careful and let's head for the secret room. Seeing that they had done all that needed to be done, Han Shao didn't continue to linger but avoided the guests and made his way to Bob Asher's bedroom. There would have been a heavy guard along the way, but Lawrence's man had made arrangements beforehand, so the 3 of them had an easy stroll down. When the 3 of them paused behind an artificial mountain and peered at Bob Asher's room, they discovered many Griffin Legion soldiers standing in front of the door. Each had solemn expressions, and the faint scent of those who had weathered multiple battlefields emanated from their tall, well-built bodies. It was easy to tell from a glance that they wouldn't be easy to handle. Lawrence said that the soldiers around Bob Asher were all his most trusted men and have overcome many battles and skirmishes with him. All of them are unafraid of death and won't listen to anyone else's commands apart from Bob Asher himself. Therefore Lawrence's man had no way to do anything about them either. Han Shao glanced at those men and explained lowly to Emily. Emily nodded, and the Dark Mantle knows of this as well. We must personally take out this group of people ourselves, or we'll be unable to enter at all. Soldiers were standing on top of the roof and at every window. Unless they could fly through the dirt, even with Han Shao and Emily's extreme abilities, they would find it impossible to avoid these people's eyes. Alright, we'll wait for a bit. The entire manor will be engulfed in chaos as soon as the Calamity Church makes their move, regardless of their success. Han Shao thought for a moment and then responded to Emily. Honored Master, what should I do in a moment? Gilbert's face was filled with excitement as he looked toward Han Shao. Master? Emily asked in astonishment and looked at Han Shao with considerable confusion. She then looked at Gilbert. How can he be your master? Did he buy you as a slave? Looking at Emily with immense disdain, Gilbert said proudly, a brainless bimbo. Alright. As a legendary dark dragon of the mighty Dark Dragon City, Gilbert would never become a slave. Dark Dragon City? You say you're from the Dark Dragon City beneath the ground? Emily was greatly taken aback. Haha, you've heard of our great name as well? Gilbert was quite happy to see that Emily seemed to know of the Dark Dragon City. He puffed his chest out and said solemnly, indeed, I am the future legend of the Dark Dragon City. He's not my slave but more like my magical pet. Han Shao smiled faintly at the flabbergasted Emily. Gilbert immediately deflated when those words were said. As a dark dragon, it wasn't an honorable thing to be someone's pet. But that was the truth, and there wasn't much he could refute. He could only hang his head and sigh. So darned unlucky that I was besieged by so many people the first time I left home. How would I have been afraid of you otherwise? dark. Emily had been a bit disbelieving, and the shock on her face only deepened when she heard Han Shao and Gilbert speak thus. Her bright eyes fixed upon Han Shao as she asked shakily, "He really is a dark dragon?" Nodding, Han Shao confirmed very firmly for her, "Absolutely. This stupid dragon was being attacked on all sides from a dark elf clan, and they paid a heavy price to wound him deeply. I was going to take advantage of it and harvest his core or something, but he was the one without the slightest bit of dark dragon dignity and shamelessly wanted to sign a master and servant contract with me, becoming my magical pet." Dark dragons are the most shameless and evil of all dragons. What kind of dignity do they have?" Emily was delighted by Han Shao's explanation and looked at the dejected Gilbert, chuckling with sarcasm. "Beautiful women can sometimes be so hateful." Gilbert was thoroughly incensed as he glared at Emily and spoke with gritted teeth. A shrill scream sounded out at this moment as all sorts of panicked footsteps suddenly exploded into hearing. The sounds of horses screaming were mixed in, as well as all sorts of weapons clanging against each other. "The Calamity Church has made their move, but we still don't know anything as of now." "Why does the Calamity Church want Bob Asher dead? Just what kind of grudge exists between them?" Joy blossomed over Emily's face as she said excitedly. Han Shao chuckled coldly with a sinister face. "According to my thinking, it doesn't matter whether or not the Calamity Church succeeds this time. Johnny and Belinda will be grievously hurt, if not dead. We'll capture them as well and slowly interrogate them." "Master, you're too ruthless and despicable." Gilbert couldn't help but cry out with excitement when he saw that Han Shao was ready to move against his allies. "Gilbert, are you mocking me?" Han Shao's brow creased as he flicked a frosty glance at Gilbert. Shaking his head ferociously, Gilbert hastened to protest. "No, I'm complimenting you. Your methods are the same as the teachings of my wise and courageous grandpa, thoroughly embodied with the essence of the superior heritage of us dark dragons." Emily had just said that the dark dragons were evil and despicable dragons, but Han Shao finally understood her words after he'd heard Gilbert's praise. It sounded like he's both praised and cursed Han Shao. Several places within the manor suddenly lit up in flame before Han Shao had a chance to lecture Gilbert. The manor had already been engulfed in chaos beforehand, and now it was suffused with all sorts of panicked screams. The guards from the Griffin Legion appeared as well, frantically trying to deal with the situation. Phoebe and Candace have also made their move. "It's our turn now." Han Shao stopped bickering with Gilbert and set his sights on Bob Asher's room with a serious expression. Emily's charming face was equally grave as she took out a magic staff and lowly sang out a dark magic spell. Several shadows that looked like demons started soundlessly approaching the guards. The demon slayer edge danced through the air according to Han Shao's thoughts, swiftly approaching a man at the door. Just as it reached the point where the person might discover the weapon, Han Shao's magical yuan suddenly exploded and greatly increased the demon slayer edge's speed. A howling sound rose as it punched through the neck of the now alarmed guard. "Assassins!" someone screamed shrilly. The 8 Griffin Legion guards hastily raised the long swords and spears in their hands, planning on handling the danger that would appear at any time. Emily's dark magic spell landed into the 2 guards it first encountered, causing them to bleed continuously and then fall down bonelessly after a while. The 5 guards behind them released their fighting auras, in time destroying the effects of the spell, and weren't injured. Because of Lawrence's men, the immediate surroundings had been cleared. No matter how the guards called out, no one answered them. Han Shao and the 3 others didn't continue hiding after this blow and directly rushed out from the darkness. Contrary to Emily's expectations, Gilbert's speed was the fastest. Even though he was in human form, the ferociousness of a dark dragon wasn't something that an ordinary person could imagine. Gilbert rushed out excitedly and acted like a bulldozer, grabbing the spear of the first guard Han Shao had killed and charging the other people. Although his target was a journeyman swordsman and was releasing an uncommon fighting aura, Gilbert stabbed through him with a single thrust, sending him flying to one side dead before he hit the floor. When his fighting aura crashed onto Gilbert, Gilbert only grunted softly and wasn't injured at all. Emily was sorely surprised by this blow and finally truly accepted Gilbert's identity as a dark dragon. Han Shao knew of this already and so wasn't surprised, walking over leisurely and directing the demon slayer edge to dance wildly, using a bewildering pattern to kill another 2 Griffin Legion soldiers. These soldiers were mostly journeymen or senior swordsmen and knights and were actually not terrible. Their job was to thoroughly defend this place and to summon greater experts when enemies came knocking. If it hadn't been for Lawrence's man within the Griffin Legion, the first cry of assassin would have been enough to summon vast troops of the Griffin Legion. If this had been the case, Han Shao and the others would only be able to flee for their lives. As Emily attacked once again with dark magic, the remaining two guards finally fell down. Seeing that the obstacles had been cleared, Han Shao spoke to Gilbert. "Stay here on guard, notify us if anything happens." Han Shao flung a look at Emily after speaking, and the two of them carefully pushed open the door, walking into Bob Asher's room. Bob Asher's room was exceedingly opulent and luxurious. Expensive furniture dotted the room, the carpet was made from the fur of a rare magical creature, and the paintings on the walls were all worth cities. This Bob Asher knows how to enjoy life all right. The decorations of this house are already enough to prove that his sources of income aren't clean, Han Shao immediately said after walking in and looking around at the surroundings. Of course, otherwise, with his identity as the chief of the Griffin Legion, he never would have been able to afford such a place. Emily nodded and headed towards the inner chamber as she responded. There was a secret doorway to another room within his bedroom. This was a bit of intelligence that the Dark Mantle had spent a lot of effort before finally obtaining. Han Shao and Emily immediately made for the inner chamber as soon as they entered the bedroom. Emily immediately lifted the covers on the bed in the room and ran her hand along the edge for a bit, looking for something, when the boards of the bed suddenly split open to reveal a cave with stairs. Within the Lancelot Empire, the Dark Mantle can manage if we absolutely must learn of some intelligence. Although the secret chamber is hidden quite well, we still learned of this place's existence and how to enter, because Bob Asher would bring his mistress in to exult in his glory. Emily smiled at Han Shao in explanation before they went down. Nodding, Han Shao expressed his understanding. Indeed, someone like Bob Asher would find it hard to control his desire to show off. If someone wants to keep a secret hidden, they'll have to pass through their own hurdle first. "Come, let's go and see what lies in Bob Asher's room," Emily said. Han Shao followed behind her and suddenly heard soft breathing sounds from someone before they'd reached the bottom. "Someone's there, be careful." Han Shao's heart tightened as he grasped Emily, proceeding forward with even more caution. When the two got to the bottom, Han Shao looked towards the source of the breathing and suddenly discovered that Caspian was being held tightly within a cage enclosed by a magical boundary. Caspian was likewise looking at the two with a face full of surprise.